Hearthstone just released yet another expansion, and this one comes with a really cool new feature, the Dungeon Run. This is a completely free mode that pits you against AI-controlled bosses in a sort of roguelite deck builder kind of game. And although this video is mostly supposed to be about a game called Slay the Spire, just bear with me here because this is going to be necessary to set everything up. You pick a class, and for every boss that you defeat, you're given 3 options to choose from, each with 3 cards apiece under a specific theme. These themes might be Battlecry, Taunt, or Healing as just an example. Every odd-numbered boss you beat gets you a special card, a passive ability on numbers 1 and 5 that might double your Battlecry, double your Death Rattle, start you with an extra mana crystal, or even give all of your minions +1/+1 permanently, and then a more powerful card you can add to your deck on the 3rd and 7th with varying effects, like a 1-cost Taunt minion that gets +1/+1 for every boss you beat, or a 3-cost Wand that lets you draw 3 cards and makes all of them cost 0. Or even a 1-cost Party Portal that summons an equal-cost minion every time you cast a spell. Potentially super powerful, right? As you can imagine, there's a lot of fun to be had in this mode. It's exciting to see what you'll get next if you beat this boss, and it's exciting to hope that the cards that you chose will come out in an order that follows whatever reasoning that made you choose them. But after a while, this fun and excitement really drops off hard. There's already a lot of randomness involved in a game of Hearthstone. Your draw order, your enemy's draw order, and whatever random effects your cards or your enemy cards wind up rolling. Anything can swing the game in one direction or another, but that's fine. That's exactly what you sign up for with a card game. But these dungeon runs add so much more randomness on the top of that. Bosses that you fight are randomly chosen from a pool, some harder than others. The passive abilities you get on your 1st and 5th win are random, as are all of your choices for cards to add to your deck. And the worst part is, you're never guaranteed enough Battlecry or Death Rattle minions if that's the passive that you happen to choose. Maybe all the cards you were offered completely go against whatever strategy you've been building towards up until that point, but you have no choice but to take them. And to make it even worse, the difficulty spikes very hard in the latter half of the run. Unless I got very unlucky, it was pretty easy for me to beat the first 5 bosses with little trouble. But after that, the boss's health and hero power got so insanely strong that you'll need a hell of a lot of good luck and some superior game knowledge to even have a hope of beating them. I'm talking about a boss with 50 health with a hero power that costs 3 that lets him summon an exact copy of any minion on the battlefield. If you didn't build a zoo deck and you run into this guy, you're probably gonna lose. How about a 60 health boss with a 1-cost hero power that upgrades a friendly minion to a random minion that costs 3 more? How are you even supposed to combat things like that? Granted, plenty of players will probably have the right combination of luck and superior card and game knowledge to trash this game mode, but it's really gotten frustrating for me as a player who only even downloaded this game again to play this very mode. The idea by itself is fantastic. A roguelite player versus AI card game where you build your deck slowly over multiple encounters. I'm surprised it hasn't been explored more. But one studio specifically has been exploring this idea for a while now, and about a month ago, I checked my email and found a key for a game called Slay the Spire, a deck-building roguelite. I'd never heard of this game before this moment, and until that time I had never even thought of a game like this existing, so I jumped on it quickly because the idea was pretty exciting. Slay the Spire is in early access at the moment, but I'm already hooked on it. Its deck-building mechanics play a lot more like Dominion if you've played that, where you start with a small deck and you discard your hand at the end of every turn so you can draw into a whole new hand on the next. If you run out of cards in the draw pile, your discard pile is simply shuffled into a new draw pile, and you keep going until either you or the enemies die. You use energy to play these cards, and each character starts with 3 energy with a few interesting relic options throughout your run that can get you to 4 energy and beyond. All the cards you would expect are here, cards that do damage, discard, draw, generate energy, and cards that block damage, as well as some that you wouldn't expect that have a variety of interesting status effects. Stuff like weakness, so your enemy hits less hard, dexterity and strength to give you more block and damage respectively, and powers that can do anything from generate block passively every turn to giving you a free 0-cost damage card every turn to help pile on the damage. Some cards even exhaust instead of going into your draw pile, meaning that you won't encounter them again for the duration of that fight. Enemies will telegraph their moves with a mechanic that the game calls intent, and it's the meat of the game. Read the enemy's intent, and use that to optimize your energy for the hand that you drew. Pretty simple. The enemies can do a lot of things. They'll attack, they'll buff themselves or their allies, they'll block your damage in the same way you block theirs, and they'll even inflict you with debuffs of their own. Something that's pretty unique about this game is that its enemies have a completely different kind of debuff to the ones that are available to you: status cards. These are cards that, once you get hit by an enemy inflicting one of these statuses, get added to your discard pile or your deck or your hand. This doesn't sound like a huge deal, but now these cards are a part of your deck, and drawing into them really sucks. Now you have a useless card that you don't want to draw into, and some of them even come with damage dealing ability. It's also worth noting that block goes away at the end of every turn. The way you get cards is simply by climbing the spire. Every enemy encounter that you defeat, you're given a choice of 3 cards. You can either pick one to add it to your deck, or if you don't think any of the cards are worth the space they'll take up, you can skip the choice and keep your deck small. There's a lot of strategy and choice to be found here, especially once you learn what each class is capable of, and it's a lot of fun to plan your card choices carefully and create an amazingly powerful deck that can smash anything in its way. But this is a roguelite, so there will be plenty of opportunities for the game to either help or hinder you. Each map is a procedurally generated set of nodes that will take you from the bottom of a level to the top. Along the way, you'll find various types of nodes: fights, elite fights, events, treasure chests, merchants, and campfires. You'll want to plan your path through the level by aiming for whatever specific nodes that you want to hit. For instance, sometimes I want to hit as many elites as possible since elites give you relics, while also hitting as many merchants as possible for an opportunity to spend my money on powerful cards, neat relics, or even on removing cards from my deck to make it more reliable. Your deck can also include curse cards. You can't play these, and most of them have a negative effect that happens if it remains in your hand at the end of your turn. It's a really creative way to apply some risk to some of the game's choices. You'll find an unavoidable treasure chest about halfway through every level as well, which comes with a free relic. These, and elite fights, are the most reliable way to get your hands on these very powerful items. These things offer all sorts of amazing passive effects, sometimes as mundane as giving you a single strength from the start of the fight, to as wild as changing the entire way the game plays by not forcing you to discard your hand at the end of every turn. There are so many different types that I can't list them all here, but there are plenty enough to keep things interesting from run to run. Campfires are also going to be one of the most important nodes that you're going to want to keep an eye out for in this game, because they allow you to either rest if you're low on HP or upgrade one of your cards if you're feeling comfortable with your health. When you first start playing Slay the Spire, you might be resting a lot, but as you get more comfortable with the game, you'll find yourself upgrading cards more and more. Almost every card can be upgraded once, and it usually ups its effectiveness by anywhere from 20 to 50%. At first glance, this doesn't really sound like a big deal, but the more effectiveness you can get out of every card you spend your precious little amount of energy on, the better off you'll be. And finally, all of these question mark nodes are also very important. You go to one and you'll be thrown into a random event, sometimes pretty bad, but almost always rewarding in some way. You might get free upgrades, you might turn into a vampire, you might get a new relic, or you might have an opportunity to get some free gold or remove some cards. Or it could just be another fight. You never know what's coming, and it's almost always worth the exploration, even if the reward comes at a price, as it often does. Central to all of this, and why I feel Slay the Spire succeeds at the idea of a deckbuilder roguelite far more than Hearthstone's dungeon runs, is the focus on player choice. Sure, Hearthstone gives you a few options between each round, but each option is very narrow and very forced upon you. And with as few choices as there are over the course of a run, it's easy to feel like you'll quickly lose to bad RNG or unfair boss mechanics, such as the boss that gives all of his minions haste. But in Slay the Spire, nearly everything you do has a clear choice attached to it, and there's so many things to do. You can choose one of the 3 cards or choose to leave them behind. You can choose not to take some of your rewards, you can choose what path you take through the spire, and you can often choose how to react in many of the events on the question mark nodes. While Slay the Spire isn't shy about occasionally screwing you over due to bad RNG, there is a lot of room for player skill and knowledge to carry you further than someone who doesn't have that. And it's because the game gives you so many choices over the course of a run. You can really get a feel of what you could have done better over the run and what went wrong if you lost, and what your deck might have been lacking. The key to a good roguelite experience isn't just randomness, it's the allowance of many player choices that give an opportunity to mitigate bad luck. And even in early access, Slay the Spire seems to understand this completely. So if you're looking for a fun deck builder, especially if you're feeling similarly disheartened by Hearthstone's dungeon runs as I am, then give Slay the Spire a look. I've been enjoying it immensely, and I think it has a bright future ahead of it.